I am Emily Paik. Oh my god, I'm 18. I'm a senior and I'm from Chattanooga, Tennessee. Well, I grew up in Chattanooga and I lived there my whole life until I came here. And yeah, I was sort of like, I don't know, I was pretty cool in middle school. I don't know what happened, I'm not really cool anymore. But like middle school days, I was like up here. Like I was class president in 8th grade and I was like friends with a lot of people and like I was cool. Yeah, not anymore. I think about my family. Yeah, I think I mean, especially because we're at boarding school, it's like, you know, I don't see my family ever. Well, actually, like, my family is really complicated. Like, half of my family lives in Newton, which is like 40 minutes away. My dad is the only one living in Chattanooga right now, and so, like, he has to commute here, like, on weekends sometimes when he wants to, like, see my mom and my sister. My older siblings are, like, out of college, so my brother's in New York. But, like, we don't really get together as a family very often, so I sort of, like, I like talking to them once in a while to see how they're doing, but we don't, like, my whole family's so bad at communicating, we don't actually end up talking to each other very often, but, yeah, we definitely think about each other a lot.
What would it be?
Oh, I already know. So, you know, like the inscription around the One Ring in Lord of the Rings? I'd want that, yeah. I'd want that, like, around my arm or, like, maybe my ankle or something. It's just like home. Like, there's no reason I should like being in Chattanooga. Like, it doesn't make sense logically. Like, the city is, like, sort of too small for my taste. The people are, I mean, there's, like, very minimal diversity. Everyone's racist, and, like, there's, like, one Korean place called Susie's that isn't actually a Korean restaurant. Like, sometimes you just want Korean food, and they don't have it, but, like, I don't know, there's something about Chattanooga I mean, it's just, like, where I grew up, and I'm so used to it, that I think, like, that's just what I love about it. Oh, like, everything. Honestly, like, I mean, given, I'm usually more fascinated when I'm, like, awake and not tired, but, I mean, just really every subject. Like, I really like sciences. My whole family is, like, my dad was a doctor, my mom majored in math and physics, no, not physics, astronomy. And, like, I've always been really interested in, like, how the world works, just in terms of, like, physics, chemistry, biology. I, like, started becoming interested in math in differential calculus. Which, like, I hated differential. I hated it. I was so bad at it. But, like, it was interesting thinking about, like, derivatives and how you can find, like, certain values based off of, like, you know, derivatives and stuff. That was sort of cool. But I think I'm, like, most interested in literature, probably. Just because I grew up reading a lot of books. Like, I was always a book person. I'd get, like, in trouble for it, which doesn't make sense. Like, why would you tell a kid not to read? I don't know why that's, like, a thing, but yeah. I always, like, read a lot. Mostly, like, Harry Potter and stuff like that. Oh. Most of my college essays were about, race. Just because, like, living in Chattanooga specifically as a Korean American is, like, quite just, like, a struggle in general. Like, I remember, when I was, like, in something like 6th or 7th grade, I was, like, maybe 12 or 13, I went to so there's, like, this big football game between the, like, two big schools in Chattanooga. It's Baylor and Macaulay. And Macaulay is an all-boys school, and I went to GPS, which is, like, it was their sister school. And so they had this football game every year in the fall, and it was, like, a huge social event, and everyone would go. And like you would paint your face blue or red depending on like, you know, if you get like t-shirts and everything. And I remember this year I went with my friends Margaret and Lynn. Margaret is Chinese Filipino and Lynn is Vietnamese. And we went together because we've been friends since like elementary school. And like we were just standing there. We were in like the student section. And like some guy came up behind me and whispered like, "Go back to China, you chink." And I was like very afraid. Like I'd been called chink before. It was like sort of a whatever thing. That was like thinking back, it's so like that was my nickname in middle school was Chinky. This girl named Taylor would call me that because it was like a joke. Thinking back, I'm like, that's so horrible. Like, but this is the first time I've been called chink like in a threatening way. And like with my friends next to me, it's like we were all targets. We're all Asian. And I think like as a 12-year-old that was really frightening. Like I did not have much fun for the rest of that day. It's like, but I don't know. I think a lot about race now as opposed to when I was in middle school. Like to be honest, I don't think I like saw it that much. It was just sort of a normal thing, like people making fun of my eyes or whatever, saying that I was from China, you know. But like thinking back, it like really kills me that I didn't say anything about it. That like I didn't do anything about it. So yeah, it's definitely so. Like I went back 2 summers ago, and this girl. So I had like this kindergarten boyfriend named Jared, and I met his mom at this church, and she like remembered me for whatever reason. My mom was the one who like went up to her, and she was just like, she's like so creepy. She was like, "Oh yeah, Jared is dating this like little Chinese girl. He's super into Asians," and I was like, like. Oh my god! Like, get away from me! Yeah, and so, like, my brother was there, and my brother just looked at her like, what the fuck are you saying? And we both just sort of, like, we both just stared at her, and we were like, why would you say that? She just got, like, super, it was, like, really uncomfortable. But that's just, like, that's, like, what Chattanooga is. And it's, like, I mean, she wasn't trying to be rude. Usually people aren't trying to be rude when they're like, when they say racist things. You know, the where are you really from question. It's like, you know, that's usually not intended as like a rude question. That can be a genuine question, you know, like where, you know, but it's reached this point where just like it's been said so often that like a lot of Asian Americans don't feel like they belong in America just because they keep like everyone keeps asking where are you really from, as if to say like you can't be from America, like you can't, you're not part of our culture even if like we've been living here for generations. So I regret like so much. I mean, you really shouldn't dwell in regret, right? Like, you shouldn't concern yourself with the past, because you know, but I regret so much. Like, it's like ridiculous, honestly, everything, you know. I think it's important to learn from your actions. Like, I think it's important to have some regret. I think it's okay, but probably you shouldn't, like, be consumed by, like, regret for every tiny detail. Like I regret something I said in like 6th grade to some person. It's like ridiculous. Yeah, I think it's probably like it. I mean, in some ways, I regret my decision to come to boarding school, just because it's like I lost that connection with my friends in middle school, and like my, you know, with Chattanooga, I mean, obviously it's like really a good thing that I came here because I learned so much and got to meet so many people, but I definitely regret a lot of things, like just superficially. Just, I have those thoughts of what if a lot. Like, what if I'd stayed in Chattanooga? What if I had studied more for this test? Like, that sort of thing. I think about that a lot. Yeah, I just like, it's really sad. I just dwell in regret. Well, probably that, like, incident at the football game, to be honest. Just because, like, that was really eye-opening, and that was, like, the first time that I, like, that was when I began, like, feeling insecure about my race. Like, sort of not feeling at home in Chattanooga. Like, I'd gotten, like, a little bit of that sense, like, throughout elementary and middle school. It sort of like grew, but I like barely noticed it until like this point, where someone said like, go back to China, and I was like, why would I go back to China? I've never been to China, I don't speak Chinese, I'm not Chinese. But like that was really eye-opening. That was sort of when I started looking into race, and like how Asian Americans are like portrayed in America, and I think that's sort of when I started looking into the whole Hollywood thing, since there's been a lot of like controversy with Asian actors and directors and whatnot. That was sort of, and I think that's one of the big reasons I'd like to sort of pursue film, just because like I would like to have some representation, and it's in a field that I enjoy studying and enjoy like participating in. So. Yeah, that moment for sure was pretty life-changing. Oh, music is huge. Because I grew up playing the violin and the piano. And like, music's just always been around me. Like, because my older sister also played the violin. And she would always be practicing late at night, whenever my brother played the saxophone. And he tried a lot of different instruments, but it's pretty much just been like piano and violin for my family. And so I had this violin teacher in Chattanooga who graduated from Juilliard, was like this really amazing violinist, and she is just incredible. She was insanely difficult to take from. If she hadn't made you cry in one of the lessons, then you hadn't been taken from her long enough. Like every one of her students has cried in her studio, just like she's made them cry in one way or another. But like she taught me so much in learning the violin about like becoming a genuine person, and like expressing myself. Because like in the violin you can't play timidly. Like that's just not respecting the instrument. You know, and that's different from playing like softly. Like you can play softly, but not timidly. You can't play like you're scared, because you know it's like a really beautiful instrument, and you want to project the sound as well as you can. And I think that taught me a lot about like self-expression, about like confidence in like, you know, pretty much anything. And further from that, I've just been like, music's just helped get by like rough times. Yeah, I like giving second chances, because I think people, like especially at our age, people are still growing, and people change a lot within just like a few years, and I think it's important to allow that change, rather than to just label someone as evil, and then like that's sort of like, that's just like what they become. So yeah, I believe in second chances. Third, yeah, I'd say being away from my middle school friends was pretty rough, especially like going back and seeing them like over breaks. Like so I went to see my friend Margaret's chapel talk, and their school is really stupid. They have like this really extravagant reception afterwards, and it's like a big deal when it like doesn't need to be. But I know that at one point she mentioned that like her and my friend Lynn were like having some breakdown at one point, or she was crying at one point in like the bathroom, and Lynn was trying to like calm her down, and for some reason I just felt like so. There was like a ton of emotions going on. Like I felt so angry that like just jealous that I wasn't there to like have that step in like a friendship, in a relationship, to be with like my friend Margaret, who I've known since 2nd grade, and to like sort of be her friend at that moment, and like I was sad that like she had never told me. Like, I don't know why she would tell me, because it's just like, you know, people cry all the time in high school, but like I was sad that like we hadn't communicated that I wasn't there for her, that like I felt really left out as a friend. I think that's really difficult.